Hello and welcome, Radio Zindagi listeners. A very good afternoon to all of you. And we are back with yet another episode of Illuminating Mind Matters with Basant, a show which is entirely built for you, the problems, the hardships we face as a community, and what could be the solution, what are the correct people to approach to. And this is brought to you by Basant. Basant, which is Bay Area South Asian network of therapists, is a non-profit organization raising awareness and advocating for mental health issues that affects the South Asian community, and they help community members with educational resources and help them connect with culturally competent mental health professionals. If you would like to know more about Basant, you can log on to their website, which is basantnow.org, or you can call them. The number would be 510-770-6223. And let me welcome our host of the show, Shalini Dayal, who is a marriage family therapist. Hey, Shalini.
Hi, Viveka. Nice to see you again, and thank you for the introduction. Hi, listeners. I'm Shalini Dayal. I'm a marriage and family therapist, and I'm going to be a host today with Illuminating Mind Matters. And I'm very honored to have with me Jagmeet Sangha. And she is a board certified behavior analyst and senior regional director at KYO. She manages the clinical services provided across the regions in California, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and Idaho. Additionally, she has served on the board of the California Consortium for Behavior Analysis since 2016 as the Northern California liaison. Jagmeet is invested in educating the community and helping families receive top quality behavior intervention services. Jagmeet speaks regularly on interdisciplinary panels, resource fairs, and frequently provides workshops on various ABA topics to parents and professionals. So welcome, Jagmeet, to Illuminating Mind Matters, and thank you for taking time off from your busy schedule to help explain to our viewers and listeners about ABA, or Applied Behavior Analysis. So with that, I would like to start with the initial question is, what is ABA? If you could give us a short description and definition.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shalini. Thank you, everyone. I'm just so happy to be here today. If I could talk about ABA or CAIO and our services, I would do that all day long. And I know we have a short time here, so I will try to sum everything up quickly. I'm very thankful for this space, and I do hope that I'll be able to provide something really valuable to your listeners today. So ABA in general is really what it boils down to is just a science. It's the science of behavior to change behavior. And so if we really look at it, we're encountering ABA all day, every day in our lives. And so when we track our steps on our Fitbit, that's ABA. When we're driving down the road and we stop at the red light and we don't want to get a ticket or we don't want anything bad to happen, that's really behavior science at play. And when we're, running effective organizations, that's ABA through the organizational behavioral management lens. And what's really unique is that just a few years ago, ABA, this behavior science, was recognized by insurance as a medically necessary treatment for a child that has received a diagnosis for autism. And that was tremendous. And it was such a wonderful way to get this treatment out for children, but it's not limited to autism. Unfortunately, through insurance and those barriers, currently it is, but it is really, really wonderful to be in a position to be able to provide this behavior science treatment, evidence-based treatment to children. And that really brings me to our mission here at CAIO. For our Bay Area listeners, we formerly have been known as Gateway Learning Group. We recently rebranded to CAIO. And we are continued and committed to our mission to inspire and develop people with autism by providing compassionate and customized therapy that's grounded in this science. And so our organization provides one-to-one ABA supports. So we go where the child is. That can be in the home, that can be at the preschool or the daycare, or at the school, providing the medically necessary funding. And that could also be at the park and helping a child making a friend, or at the store, helping them make a purchase. And so those are the one-to-one services. And in addition to that, what we do is provide very intense and hands-on parent training and behavioral consultation to parents, caregivers, and collaborate within that child's team.
Thank you for that very detailed explanation about what CAIO does and what ABA is. You mentioned along with people who are on the spectrum, children who are on the spectrum, who insurance does pay for ABA services. Who else does ABA can benefit?
Yeah, ABA, like I said, can benefit everyone. So I think that this is definitely a misconception that we have because it's tied right now funding through insurance only to autism. And unfortunately, I haven't seen other diagnoses or other individuals receive it through that insurance path. Now, if we're working with school districts or if we're contracted by an organization to come in and help, an individual or an entire classroom in terms of building classroom management skills, we can certainly be helpful in that setting and provide that. And CAIO does do that as well. We do work a lot with school districts. We want to be very collaborative, and especially through everything that happened in terms of the pandemic last year, really being able to understand how can we take our pillars, which is providing effective, convenient therapy that's child-centric, and how do we show up for our partners in the community, and how can we, provide services, whether it's in the schools, whether it's supporting teachers, whether it's in the home and supporting parents.
That is very good to know that you're available for schools as well. So when a parent contacts you, what can they expect in the process of services?
Yeah, so when we typically do our intake phone calls or these initial calls, they're very involved and very personalized. So they typically are speaking to one of our regional directors, a local director that's where the parent is or the family is located. And we'll really try to understand what are the specific needs for that child and for that family, and if we're going to be a good fit for them in terms of treatment design and expectations. That call is anywhere, from 30 minutes to an hour, or, so it's not tremendously long to really understand, but it does set the ground for understanding what our treatment looks like, and for the parents to kind of have an understanding of who the key players are and on their clinical side of the team. Once the family has the diagnoses on file, they are then able to proceed with that intake process. And so getting the diagnoses is something they go through their doctor, we request it, we send that over to insurance. And then we have to actually start our own assessment. And that's a common question that I get is, well, I just waited for this assessment and now I'm asking for another one. This assessment that we do is just for our services. And it's essentially a roadmap of the treatment plan that we're going to be designing serving that child. Once the treatment plan or that assessment is completed, it gets back to insurance and we get the authorization directly from insurance of the clinically recommended hours. And at CAIO, we are very, very mindful of recommending dosage of, recommended hours that is going to be effective. We don't want to recommend 30 hours, 40 hours for a child that we feel may not be necessary. We want to be very mindful based on the assessments and based on those needs to recommend those hours to begin services.
Yeah, that's very clear and very concise about the way you described, what the parents can expect. I have a follow-up question around that is how do your clinicians interact with the kids? What are some of the settings that your clinicians are able to access to connect with their clients?
Yeah, so we have what's called a BCBA, Board Certified Behavior Analyst. Those are typically the supervisors on the case. They're doing the assessments, they're building the program. And they're supervising the behavior technician. And so it's the behavior technician that's providing the one-to-one therapy. And they're following the treatment plan that's designed by their supervisor. And these behavior technicians, like I mentioned, they're either in the home, they can be in the community, they can be in another setting, such as a school or preschool, as long as those settings allow us to be there, and as long as it is, again, medically necessary, and we feel as a team that there is a skill or there is an area that we can be focused on in terms of supporting the child. And sometimes we get asked to, do shadow support in a setting, and we feel, well, actually, the child's really thriving, and we don't want to be there, and we want them to have that independence, and we want to be able to support them in a setting where they are struggling, and where we can teach them, and then they can continue to generalize and be independent with those skills.
What ages do you serve?
Yeah, as young as 18 months. So as long as there is a diagnosis on file, we are seeing really young children get diagnoses, which I can get to that later, but it's such a positive thing in terms of getting that diagnosis early, getting that treatment early, and that gain. And then we serve up to young adults. And because we're typically guided by insurance, that is, it kind of caps out in terms of where the insurance for that child may end.
And so when the children are coming in, like at a young age, what are some of the behaviors that you are seeing where your clinicians actually help? Some specific examples will be appreciated.
Oh, absolutely. We focus on language development, especially for the ones. That is probably one of the first things that we want to go in there and start supporting the family and the child with, because if a child is able to communicate their needs, they're, as a parent, knowing what your child wants, it's such a powerful first step to kind of build on. Self-help skills for the little ones, when it's appropriate for them to be potty trained, when it's appropriate for them to be eating on their own, getting dressed on their own. These are skills that we can go in and support with. For school age children, we may be supporting them with transitions, transitioning to homeschool, to back to school, all of these different, environments and new routines. We may support them through, building coping mechanisms or strategies for different aversive needs that they have. And so all of these skill areas and these domains is something that, again, through behavior science, we're able to shape and build and teach to a child.
And that is wonderful to know that there are so many different life skills you will address from a very young child to a young adult. And how do you involve parents in this process? How can parents help?
I love that question. Thank you for asking, Shalini. The biggest piece of this and the most critical component is the parent, and not just the parent, it's anyone that child has regular contact with. And, that can be a grandparent, that can be the neighbor that, child's seeing every day, it can be the teacher. But the parent kind of holds everything together, because they can really build and foster an environment for open communication, collaboration, and really getting those communication ties open and saying, how are we going to all be on the same page? And again, because it's behavior science and we're not, looking for this magic wand to come in, it's really going to have to be on those caregivers of the primary caregivers of the child to really be on the same page. And so, if many times this happens, our team comes in and we're following a behavior plan, and the child is starting to pick this up, and they start to know, well, when Jagmeet says to put on my shoes, she's business, because, we're going to get to go outside and play, and this is what's going on. And then a family might say, well, when I ask him to put on his shoes, we have these tantrums. And so consistency is going to be the number one factor. And if you start to see, if you're implementing something, it'll take time. I mean, how many times have we implemented a healthy diet for ourselves? And then how many times do we fall off that? Again, that is just behavior science, and consistency and being able to track that data, have the parent in the driver's seat and saying, these are things that are working for us, and these are things that are challenging for us, or these are priority for our family unit. We need to work on this. And then really committing to that behavior plan, and as an entire team of that child being on that same page.
Thank you. That is very valuable for us to know. And I can see Vedika like smiling at some of the points. And I'm wondering if you have a question for Jagmeet and a comment or some feedback.
So, like me, just listening and as a member of community, I definitely want to say that you have heard the names which Jagmeet was just discussing. You have heard the approach, like how parents can go. So, thank you so much for deciphering it in so much detail and making it so approachable for people to think and approach. So, as I always say, thanks to Basant for bringing such gems from our community and connecting them to our audience. So thanks, guys. And as our show is all about community issues and concerns, so I would like to remind our listeners that if you have any particular topic, if you have any question, or if you're seeing something around you and you would like us to discuss that in particular, you're more than welcome to write us on info@basantnow.org. That will be info@basantnow.org. It could be any topic which you are experiencing or you're seeing around you. We would be happy to bring that to the community. Or if you want to know more about Basant, as I said already, the website is the best source. Basantnow.org would be the website, or just give them a call, 510-770-6223. Other than that, every Wednesday we bring more and more people from the community, and we try to connect and educate as much as we can. So over to you, Shalini.
Thank you, Vedika, for the reminders as well. So what have you found, Jagmeet, as a critical component for effective treatment?
Yeah, I think that the parent collaboration and communication, absolutely, so that everyone is on that same page. One other thing that I often encourage families is to be able to build a community for themselves. And something that CAIO does, and we've done for a long time, is host free webinars. And pre-COVID, they used to be live events. And such a fantastic way for parents to come together and learn about a topic, and then also connect with other families. And I think that, we all know the importance of community, and, Radio Zindagi is doing such a fantastic job of building that and, bringing this all in. But when you have that community, you can really tap into sources and resources that you may not be familiar with. And I think that particularly for our Indian South Asian community, it's so important. And, this is something, like I said, I can talk forever in terms of how do we get this information out there? And how do we encourage families to say, go, if you feel that your child is at risk and their development is at risk, be the advocate, talk to the doctor, push for that diagnosis. And once you have the diagnoses, figure out, identify those next steps. And having that community can sometimes be a good source and inspiration of, you're not alone in this. And there are community members that can support that.
And I also want to remind our listeners that speaking on diagnosis, you can approach a clinical psychologist, the regional center of the East Bay, and your physicians who are trained in assessing children and young adults and adults for autism. And many of the bigger organizations, medical organizations like Kaiser's, PAMF, and Sutter Health, they also have in-house services where people can take their loved ones, or for themselves also, because autism is something that somebody has. It is a way of being. And sometimes understanding whether it is if you've had it since or were diagnosed with it at a young age, or happens when you are seeking services and understanding of what is happening for you, even at a later age, the resources are there. So please reach out for them. Speaking of the South Asian community, what are some of the challenges you are seeing and you see from your clinicians and from your organizations from the South Asian community?
I think the challenge again is just access and that familiar ground of, is this something that, how do I go about kind of reaching this? And one thing that I do want to plug here for is one of Kayo's program supervisors in Southern California is working on her capstone project right now in applied behavior analysis at USC. And she's actually putting together a project around evaluating the effectiveness of providing mindfulness coaching based on behavior science to families of South Asian and Indian background, specifically with children with disability. And so being able to understand how do we bypass the stigmas and how do we bypass all of the stressors that come with having a child with a disability. And I've heard some really phenomenal things about her work already. And she's actually looking for families to participate. And, you know, my kind of stance would be to encourage our community to seek out and be a part of these studies and be a part of that voice. So that way we can be heard and more of our services can meet our specific needs and what those needs are. And so that way, when we're working with clinicians and we have more clinicians, they can recognize things like living in a joint family and things like, you know, what are the priorities for this family unit? And so there's all these intricacies that all communities have. And so being an Indian community member, I feel that being able to share that information, I think can go a long way. And so I definitely encourage your listeners today to find out information about that. They can contact me directly. I can put them in touch with her. But that would be a great way to contribute as well.
Oh, thank you for sharing that information. So our listeners can reach out to you through Kayo, and there's a way to contact you through the website. And also you will be able to connect them with one of the supervisor who is doing the study as well.
Absolutely. So they can just reach out. That you can go to our website, which is Kayo Care. So that's KYO Care, CARE.com, KayoCare.com. And my name is Jagmeet, and you can find me on the website, or you can just email the information asking to speak with me, and it will absolutely direct that over to me.
Thank you for sharing that information. And we will also provide a link on our website to your organization and the services that you provide, because it's so invaluable. What are some of the suggestions that you can give to our listeners, especially the parents whose children have been diagnosed with autism and are wondering what to do, and the ones who have received the services and are receiving services? What can you suggest to them in terms of support?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is to just get started. And, you know, that first step is always the hard step. But again, if you go to our website, KayoCare.com, you can actually get free webinars that you can see in all sorts of different topics, like navigating challenging behaviors, toilet training, how to build a routine, sleep training. And so I think that finding something that meets your needs. And we also provide free behavior consultation. So you can just sign up and say, you know, my child has an autism diagnosis or they don't, but I'm struggling with these types of behaviors for my child. What do I do? And you can actually speak to one of our behavior analysts, or one of our regional directors actually, and they will actually guide you for 30 minutes and give you resources related to your needs. And this is a free service that we offer.
That is wonderful to know. That is wonderful to know that you have all these services and resources for people within the community. What also can you share in a few seconds? I think we have like less than a minute left. For parents, how to take care of themselves when they are supporting the children?
Yeah, I think that being able to identify your values and going back to those values is so important. And I would say a tip that I'm using as a parent right now is to put it in bold and write it on the fridge of, this is what I value. And when I come to those challenging days and those challenging moments multiple times a day, you know, having a moment, taking a deep breath and saying, this is what I value and this is what I'm reminded of. And again, that's rooted in behavior science. It's able to track our behaviors that's aligned with those values. So find that community, find that connection. And, you know, I'm hoping that this will be helpful.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, Jagmeet. This was very valuable. And we are planning to also have other parents come in and other experts to talk about autism. So this was a great opening on this topic. Thank you again. And with that, I turn it over to Vedika.
Thank you, Shalini, and thank you, Jagmeet. That was a really informative session. Thanks for sharing all the information with our listeners. And listeners, just to remind you, you can catch us again every Wednesday. I remind you again and again because it's important to listen to such wonderful shows. So 12:30 to 1 is the time. Every Wednesday, we present you Illuminating Mind Matters with Basant. And we will be back next Wednesday. Till then, if you want to know more about Basant, once more, it's basantnow.org. Or if you want to know more about Kayo, as Jagmeet mentioned, it's kayocare.com. So you can get all the information about them as well. Or if you have any topic you want us to discuss on the show, info@basantnow.org, or just give them a call. Give Basant's team at a call, 510-770-6223 would be the number. With that, this is RJ Vedika signing off. Till then, Jai Jai.